Hey, welcome to my channel and this essay that I've written and shared on Substack just yesterday about the unapologetic American. It has two parts. The first part is the essay. It's a medium length essay where I write about a core symptom in Trumpism, being unapologetic. But I also find this really cool um, power and tool we have that's very useful that I also write about. The second part's a poem. It was born out of a random thought I had about this time Adam apologized to Eve, which to my knowledge never happened or, is in the stories. Um, but it's longer and it's a narrative poem and it's riddled with, I think, weighty and healing images. So thank you for being here and wherever you are. I hope you have safety and peace in your life. The unapologetic American is afraid. In normal contexts where social relationships are valued, someone who does not account for their mistakes, let alone their failures and injuries to others, would be seen as someone with a profound character flaw, if not as an outright sociopath. Yet being unapologetic is the backbone of the president's persona and his popularity with his acolytes. For Donald Trump, his sycophants and his supporters, pretending their movement is beyond reproach buttresses the facade of righteousness. As a movement, they believe in and amplify that power doesn't apologize. Moreover, Trump and co.'s political posture feigns injury where there is none and gaslights calls for responsibility where there is a need for some. His crowd flatter him with emulations and legitimize the assaults and insults to decency and norms that have kept America relatively cohesive. Of course, it is natural to be frustrated and outraged. Yet if we allow this malignant political strategy and our outright disgust for Trump excusers to send us into tailspins of convulsive rage or stunned depression, then we will be ensnared in the sickness of this movement. For those whose sense of humanity cuts through their toxic charade of impunity and are called to resist this gross alteration of American decency, it behooves us to promote the power of apologies, the goodness that comes with repairing harm, and the irreplaceable value of building peace in relationships. These tools of healing are essential for keeping the collective good alive and well. Perhaps we are best counseled by the late American poet William Stafford, who wrote in the last stanza of his poem, A Ritual to Read to Each Other, these lines: "For it is important that awake people be awake, or a breaking line may discourage them back to sleep. The signals we give, yes or no or maybe, should be clear. The darkness around us is deep." Remaining awake and clear in the signals we give is vital in a time when the executive branch is the source of darkness. Clear signals are a form of light, and there's one signal we can give that will help us most in this period of profound darkness. The next section, unapologetically murderous. Like many, I was angered and bewildered to see Jonathan Ross callously gunning down Renee Good on a residential street in Minneapolis a couple weeks ago. In Ross's video, we can see a distracted agent multitasking when acute situational awareness was needed. Truly, it seemed Ross's attention was more intent on video capture than making tactical, informed decisions. It was by watching the New York Times video analysis of the incident that I began to realize that Ross's actions were less instinctual defenses, but showed signs of premeditation, calculation, and pretense creation. Ross's video also captures damning words, for he calls Good a fucking bitch after shooting her 3 times. Common sense sees animosity in his actions. Unrelated to the modest contact made, the video analysis further indicates a level of intent unbecoming of someone given the power to wield arms over American citizens. Within hours, a false narrative bloomed like toxic scum in the unfiltered pond of Trump's unstable mind. Hurried responses made appeals to authority over law, diverted attention from the agent's conduct in the moment to the conduct of good before her murder. In particular, I found myself feeling nauseous listening to MAGA-land talking heads like Scott Jennings. Where's my barf bag? It was infuriating to see his bob and weave, only interested in shifting blame. I asked Google's Gemini to assess its argumentative approach on Newsnight with Abby Phillips. You can find that response on my website, How Humans Work, under the Substack section. The same pattern is happening again as another unjust murder of 37-year-old Alex Pretti took place just 2 days ago. Pretti, an ICU nurse for veterans, was shot in the back while being swarmed by federal agents. Instead of an apology and accountability, we're being fed egregious lies by DHS and the head of the Customs and Border Patrol. Damn, how powerful some apologies would be right now. Why is apologizing such a threat? Is the third part of the essay. As we are well aware, the administration has blamed the shooting of Renee Good, Alex Pretti on the victims. Far-fetched and unvetted accusations of domestic terrorism, plots to gun down agents, and left-wing cabal narratives spilled out like the brain of a troll that had fallen off a great bridge onto a gallery of rocks below. These mind-bending explanations are naked attempts to hold up the facade of power. Accountability, it seems, is a word for others, especially because of all the wrongs done to Trump, to white America, to Republicans. As noted, a key symptom of the sickness encumbering their movement is the belief that the unapologetic American has power, that true Americans have nothing to apologize for. Suggesting otherwise is unpatriotic, more evidence of Trump derangement syndrome. I'm not sure when an apology became a dangerous event in public life, but clearly it has over time. Trump, though, has perfected it, and MAGA has embraced it as the most efficient way to whitewash their way back to their comfort zone, to some miserable charade of unearned confidence. It makes one wonder, what is so dangerous about being wrong? Why is taking accountability and apologizing so freaking terrifying that people would rather sell their morality and decency to make sure it doesn't happen to them? Next section, apologies require intimacy and feeling. My best answer to why the fear is that a genuine apology requires intimacy. Apologies require feeling. Apologies require sensing the needs and feelings of someone else, someone on the other side of the relationship. What having empathy doesn't allow for is the freedom for Trump to grab the crotch of women when he wasn't invited to do so, to sexualize his daughter in public, the freedom to have power without accountability, like Putin and other autocratic fuckers who wreak harm upon their countrymen with their unfeeling, wounded hearts. The sad dream of MAGA is to be beyond the need to sense the impact of others. Their notion of freedom is to be unapologetically American. They've made Donald Trump the hero of this identity war. As we speak, many are manufacturing a robe of impunity, adorning it on him as if he were a king who slew the dangerous, pluralistic left who want to bring empathy for all Americans, even good-hearted, hard-working immigrants. I wonder if they realize that in their comfort, they have a price to pay. Nah, probably not. At least not yet. Empathy, the ace up our sleeve. The aces they fear, we already have up our sleeve, or at least in the fibers of our hearts. Our empathy, our ability to live with feeling for the other, is the antivenom to the snakebite of narcissism that has bitten Lady Liberty. We know that Trump fears empathy. He said as much to Erica Kirk on stage at Charlie Kirk's memorial event. I've come to believe this is how we will make our way through this perilous time. In practical terms, this means tending our relationships and being willing to see our impact and to apologize when needed, that we take time to listen to ourselves and our respective communities. I don't know about you, but I'm elated and relieved to know such a simple human quality is what tyranny is afraid of. It is heartening to know that the more we can live our lives and our relationships with feeling, the weaker the Trump approach to society becomes. So, in the face of loss and tragedy, let's also be buoyed that of all things we only need empathy. That empathy is the kryptonite of MAGA. Trump, Noam, Vance, Bovino, selfish billionaires like Elon Musk become weaker when we care for each other. Our social care and kindness disempower those who have declared empathy a liability. They are disenfranchised by it, and they know it. All right, that's the essay. Now to poetry. Finally, we arrive at my poem. The poem's called To Everything Here in Eden. The poem imagines a catharsis and a healing for Adam and Eve. What would it take? What would it look like? And what would happen if Adam apologized to Eve? Obviously, you can see the connection between the spirit of apology and the unapologetic and this mythic poem. Be aware, please note, I'm not faulting Adam. I'm not claiming that Eve is exempt from or doesn't require some healing. Indeed, I hope there might be someone out there who can write a poem in which Eve apologizes to Adam for some reasons I may not have considered. I'd love to see how that might be portrayed. What I am saying, or rather figuratively exploring, is the image of Adam and men by proxy becoming aware of their impact and what's possible by repairing relationships with real, emotionally alive apologies. Writing the poem moved me. I hope it moves you. Here we go. To Everything Here in Eden. When Adam spied Eve in her broken beauty, weeping eyelashes and tattered gown, he heard a voice from afar say, "Dear one, I'm so sorry." It calmed Adam to hear its warm timbre, its amber equanimity and transparent love. It was, he felt, a heart-quenching apology. When Eve looked up at him, Adam realized it was his lips that had moved, his voice that had spoken out. Surprised how near to love he actually was, Adam came to and began noticing things about Eve that had escaped him, that he had forgotten to see. Her disheveled grief belied her strength. Long sinews in her arms and legs were agile, alert. Proud cheekbones revealed a noble beauty, and the soft curvature around her navel was steady and gentle. In her eyes, he saw Eve's truth, endless pools of pain and honesty. It was nearly unbearable. More resolved, he spoke again, but for the first time. "I am so sorry, Eve." As he did, forsaken parts of Adam cracked open, curling pangs of regret snaked through his innards. He felt a sudden need to scream, but as he tried, something fought back. He quivered and stammered as if centuries of constraint were trying to stop him. When Adam finally opened his mouth, there was no shrill cry of pain or unacknowledged rage or terrible fear crying out of him in some wild storm. Instead, Adam felt an awkward, messy, malleable mass moving up from his chest, through his throat, out of his mouth, and onto the earth. Startled, he stood looking down at a stark, pulsating flesh, splashing droplets of blood to some long-forgotten fetal rhythm. It was his heart, and he could see into it. In its beating folds and chamber walls, Adam spotted a second motion there, a counter-undulation at work. Multitudes of tiny worm-like larvae, wriggling in distress, were dwelling, breeding, feeding. Adam felt nauseous, disgusted by the thought of what had been inside of him. And though he wished he could, Adam could not follow his revulsive impulse to crush away his infested heart with his heel into the earth and be done with it. He knew there would be nothing of him left. And yet he could not walk away and let this festering core remain uncared for. Adam was caught, absorbed in the clashing rhythms of his heart, contemplating what could be done. Eve watched but said nothing. Eventually, Adam started picking the larva out of his fallen heart. Tenderly and with fine tree twigs he'd found, he dislodged and relocated them one by one, all about Eden's black soil, along the gnarled tree roots, in the cups of fecund flowers, upon thick leaves with fuzzy filaments. Each time a larva snaked its way back into the earth, a petal's nook and curling green leaves fold, making themselves another home. When Adam was finally done, Eve rose up, came over to him, and picked up his well-cleaned heart with both hands before setting it on a fig leaf and carefully enswathing its bright ruby-like body inside this verdant gift from Eden's tapestry. Then, with great kindness, Eve stood before Adam, offering his leaf enshrouded heart to him as if it were a sacred apple. Adam no longer felt awkward or repulsed. Instead, he was filled with longing and willingness. Eve slightly opened her mouth, inviting Adam to open his, as she fed Adam's unfettered heart back to him so it could return home to its abode in the center of his chest. Adam tasted neither blood or pain nor rage or fear, but the flavor of utmost tender love. His senses were bewildered, wedded to the dream of light, and he felt the breath of creation fill him up. Adam's heart rooted like a tree, then flowered like a rose. It began emanating a sweet aroma and turned the electric anguish in his innards into a deep presence that coiled itself contentedly. He was grateful to be himself, to be with Eve, and to be here in Eden. Adam realized what had happened. Believing he was alone and had to hurt alone, he had hurt Eve. He could fathom that now. All his rage, all his scorn, all his demands, all that he had asked her to endure, just because he'd bit into the forbidden fruit from her hands and became naked, ashamed not of his nudity, but ashamed of how little he could control, of his helplessness, gnawing painfully into his heart. How Eve had known the sharp end of his struggle all too well. Dear one, Adam turned to Eve and spoke completely. I am so sorry for how I have dealt with my fear since we fell out of grace. I've done tremendous harm to you, to everything here in Eden.